Welcome back. Let's put this in the ether. As young men out there, you have no excuse to marry at a young age at all, right? You have no excuse. Not that I'm trying to control you, right? No, I mean, if it's your religion to do so, by all means, that's your faith to do it. But guys who's not very religious or anything like that, or understand how religion works and understand how society works these days, right? There's no excuse to marry at an early age. There's no excuse to marry at your 20s. There's no excuse to marry at your 30s, probably 40s, 50s, right? But when you're 20s, right, there's no excuse. You basically put yourself as in a disadvantage, right? You have so much to live, so much to gain in knowledge, right? A woman in a family will only hold you back, will only slow you down in order to put you in your greater position in life, to get you from reaching greatness, right? To get you from exploring what's out there, your option. You have a lot of options. Young men, right? Don't be discouraged don't be, I don't want to say jealous of the older men, right? The oldest men, of course, the reason why they got there because they lived through the younger years to get to where they're at, right? So you have to do the same. You can't just rush these things, right? So when you're younger, right, you have to experience all these things to gain all this knowledge so you can reach that position as these older men out there, right? So when you're younger, you actually have more options. You have to have more time to better yourself off, right? There's a lot of things to learn, and there's a lot of women to explore. When you put yourself in that position of getting married, you're settling down, right? When you settle down, you reduce your options. You reduce your ability to gain new grounds. You reduce your ability to learn new things. I'm not saying you can't do that when you're married, but it's a challenge to do so because you have mouths to feed. Right? You have a family to feed. Now your priority isn't yourself. Your priority is your family, your woman, your child, right? If you choose to get married early, right? So there's not that much benefit to do that. Besides that, if your prerogative is to start a family young, by all means go for it, right? But don't expect an easy life when you get married at a young age. It's going to be harder for you to do so because you have all these responsibilities. You're bringing more responsibility in your life. When you're younger, you don't have that much responsibility, especially if you're a bachelor, right? Your bachelor is just yourself. It's cheaper to live by yourself. It's cheaper to raise yourself. It's cheaper to support yourself if you're a young man in life, especially in 2023 when things are getting more expensive. Having a family is more expensive. Not only that, having children are more expensive. There's a lot of responsibility when it comes to children, and it's harder to give the right kind of knowledge or to raise the children properly, especially at a young age, because you still learn yourself as well. Right? When you get older, it's easy to raise children because you have knowledge to spread out to your children because you have experiences, right? That's what you want. You want to get experiences at a young age so you know what to tell your kids when you get older, right? When you're young and raising a kid, it's like a kid raising a kid. What kind of valuable information can you instill on your child? Because you're still learning yourself. It's going to be harder, right? So I'm not saying it's easier to raise a kid no matter what, but I'm just saying there's more disadvantages when you have a kid at a younger age, right? Why do you think all this relationship doesn't work out? When you have a relationship with your girlfriend and all that stuff, how do you know that relationship is going to work out, right? You should take your time to marry her, right? Take your time to be with her to learn who she is, because time will expose everything. If you go ahead and just rush into marriages, how you know you've married the right person, right? With a guy, he takes his time. Everything is better when you take your time, like a fine wine, right? A fine wine they age better when you take your time to let it age. As for yourself, when you as a man take your time when it comes to relationship, right? Take your time in doing anything, right? You're more likely to not make that much mistakes in life. A lot of mistakes, right? When you're younger, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, right? That's come with the territory being young. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes, and that's mistakes you're supposed to learn from it, right? And now imagine if you're married and you're making all these mistakes. Now you put all these people life in jeopardy as well, in danger, right? Now you bring other people's life and make mistake with them. You should make mistake by yourself first before you bring anybody else into your life, right? Now you put these people, right, into a position where they have to struggle when they shouldn't be struggling. All right? Now they have to struggle with you, right? So it doesn't make any sense. I mean, in life, every man struggle, but it's easier to struggle by yourself than it's easy to support other people while you're struggling as well, right? It make any because you only put yourself in a hard position if you're in a relationship with a woman at a younger age, right? These other guys out there who get married young, they already have their life already set. They already have a family structures. They already have a proper family support, right, and all this stuff, right? But most of us aren't that lucky. Most of us grew up from a single father household. Most of us don't have a cohesive family, right? Now, if you're not privileged enough to come from that kind of background, it's going to be harder for you, right, to support a family. It's going to be harder for you to support yourself, right? If you don't come from a privileged background, when you grew up with a multi-million-dollar trust fund or your trust fund baby, it's going to be easy for you because you already have your life handed to you, right? You already have all this stuff handed to you, right? Passed down. You already have a business handed to you, right? But if you just starting up fresh, you don't have nothing. You grew up from the hood and all this stuff. Don't think marriage is a solution. Marriage is only going to hinder you down. Marriage is going to slow your progress, right? You have to endorse a lot of experience first before you can even dabble in marriages. Marriage is a big commitment. You have to understand the legal process of marriage. You have to understand the consequences of marriage, right? You have to understand the dynamic of relationships, right? In your prime, in your younger years, you want to get into as much relationship as you want, so you get those experiences of how girls work. Now, if you have been married one time with a girl, how often do you have experience with women? Right, with different kind of women, you have to sample the dating pool first to see how women works for you to understand how women nature works. Right now, if you just commit to a woman at a young age at 19 to 18, you just limit your experience, your ability to gain more experience in life. Right, so don't rush into this thing. Right, you'll be in a better position once you know everything, once you have a lot of experiences, a lot of knowledges. Been there and done that. Now when you're ready to start a family, right? You know what you want in a person, right? Especially women today. Women today are not marriage material, right? Women today they have a high body counts. As soon as they hit 18, they probably have like a couple of body counts already, right? And they're more disloyal to you, more dishonest to you. Especially women at your age and a younger man, women are least likely to respect you. Right? Especially women in your own age group. If you are 18 and you date a person the same age as 18, she's less likely to respect you. She's less likely to listen to you. She can feel like she's more independent because of all the things going on in the world, of all the propaganda that's going through in the world, telling her she's just that, she's more independent, she don't need a man. Right? Why would you be like that? And plus, if you marry a younger woman, she's more inclined to listen to you, more inclined to pay attention to you, more inclined to be peaceful than it is for you to marry your peers that say that. Right? So as a young man, you shouldn't be rushing into marriage at all. Right? Because you put yourself in a big disadvantage. Right? Marriage should be your last options, right? Marriage, like, maybe you impregnate a woman by accidents, right? In that case, I don't suggest marriage as well. But if you're a guy by morals and you feel like you have to take care of it, by all means, go for it, right? But if you don't have that kind of responsibility, right? If you are still new to the world, if you still try to build yourself up, if you don't have any support, if you come from a broken family, all that stuff, and you still try and make it out there, marriage should be your last option because you're putting yourself in a more disadvantage. Right? Make sure you get your priorities straight first before ever thinking of marriage. Right? Marriage is a big decision, and marriage basically is a rich man game. That's what it is. If you're not a rich man, you shouldn't be participating in marriage at all. Right? Why do you think the wealthy are in marriages? Right? Because they can afford it. They can afford all these legal matters. They can afford to lose a large chunk of their money. They can afford to lose it because they're so wealthy, right? So if you aren't wealthy, you shouldn't be marrying. It's a rich man game. And as a young man that's freshly out of high school, you're mainly poor. You don't have no much income. You don't have no much asset. So why are you marrying? Right? You should be married, and then you're married, and you go rent an apartment. Right? Now you're struggling, right? You should get your priorities straight first, get your money right first, before ever thinking marriage, because it's expensive. Marriage and family is very expensive, right? Get the proper route to go is to build yourself first, establish yourself, get all this wealth and knowledge and experience before ever considering marrying, right? Get all your assets, your priorities straight first, before considering marriage. Because if you don't, you're gonna be one of the statistics out there. I see a lot of men, a lot of my family members, friends of mine, getting married and they're still struggling. They're still renting an apartment. They're still, not to say renting an apartment is bad, but I'm just saying they're struggling, right? Especially guys from the hood, right? They think marriage is the next step. No, they don't understand that marriage is a rich man game. I said in one of my videos. You have to have money in order to get married. If you don't have money, what's the point of getting married for? What? For God? No, marriage is not about God these days. Especially when you have to sign a contract. Now, how do I know marriage is not about God? Because they allowed same-sex marriage, right? As soon as they allow same-sex marriage, that's your inclination that marriage is not about God at all. Marriage is about the state, right? The state government is separate. Is separate church and state, right? So if you separate church and state, you cannot have God in a governmental contract, right? This is why they allowed same-sex marriage to happen. This is why the Supreme Court allowed same-sex marriage to happen, because they understand that there's no God between the contract of marriages, between the government and you, right? God is not involved. It's a contract between you and the government. That's how I know that the sanctity of marriage is not about the Bible. It's about God. It's not about the Bible. It's not about God. It's about the government. It's a business. So in order to get married, you have to be business inclined. It's a rich man game, right? Basically, it's a rich man game. So there's nothing religious about God in marriage at all. It's not about God. There's no God in marriage, especially in a contract with the state, right? You need to understand that. So if you decide to get married, you are win your right to get married, but understand there is business, right? And in business, you have to get your priorities straight, your money straight, right? So for young men, don't rush into getting married because you put yourself in a big advantage. And young men are usually they're not raised, not raised. They're not entered the real world with money automatically. We have to do our part, put in a struggle in order to get our wealth first, right? Because most men that are out there who's just getting his foot wet in the real world are not wealthy. We have to face reality. That's what it is. When I stepped in the real world, I wasn't wealthy, right? And that goes to say for most men out there, right? But on that note, guys, if you're a young man, last thing on your mind is marriage, because you put yourself in a disadvantage, right? But if you agree or disagree, let me know in your section below, in the comment section. Do you agree? Am I conveying my message correctly? Right? But on that note, guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. Right? And on that note, guys, peace and blessings.